Good afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome to our distinguished panelists, attendees, our partners, and colleagues from the industry. After the inaugural session that happened a couple of days ago, we are pleased to have another power-packed panelists on board for the second edition, the second webinar session on food and beverage. So I'll hand this over to Benz, who will now introduce our distinguished panelists in detail, and we can begin the session. Over to you, Benz.
Thank you so much, Vicky. So private labels, be it apparels, grocery, wellness products, cosmetics, jewelry, etc., have been growing in India. What we've seen in the past is, and if we look at our Western counterparts, the growth has been really, really big. And they say it contributes about anywhere between 14 to 25% of a retail store's sales. What they offer what a private label offers is essentially a supply chain efficiency where greater product customization can happen because the retailer is definitely closer to the consumer and therefore can go back to a manufacturer and say, these are the kind of customizations that I want, and also thus be able to generate much more higher margins. While earlier, the thought was that private labels are essentially Me-Too brands and offering a cheaper alternate to a national brand kind of a thing. It's now changed big time, where premiumness of the product, the quality of the product is probably the number one thing that people look for. And that is what the retailers have started to offer. So you might walk into a retail store and see a lot of private labels and might just turn around, and maybe now it's happening, maybe in a few years it'll happen, and might just turn around and say, hey, by the way, this is expensive. It's expensive because it's giving you much better quality, much better value for the money that you're paying. So quite a few private labels exist in India. Almost every retailer has their own private labels because, again, like I said, improved quality, premiumness of the product, etc., is what it is. Today, we're going to be talking about the food and beverage industry, and we've got with us industry leaders from various organizations, and we're blessed to have both online and offline retailers in this conversation who are going to share and take you through the journey of a private label. And I'm sure, as with the last webinar that happened, we've got a lot of private label manufacturers as part of this webinar. So it'll be great for all of you to listen to what it takes for a private label, what it takes for a private label to come into living, and also for a manufacturer to become a private label with one of these organizations, both online and offline retail. So we've got pretty much private labels in every single scenario. My first private label experience, honestly, was a big retailer who had just come into India a few years ago, probably about 7-8 years ago. And they were trying to do tea, and it was the blind tea testing that we were doing to understand how well it met the market leaders' requirements, kind of a thing. So that's my first experience of a private label. And if I go back to my experience of walking into a retail store in the UK, which was the last trip that I had before COVID, you just walk into the retail store and you see a lot of private label brands, especially in the food sector. So food and beverages is really, really big, and that is what we're going to be talking about today. I will quickly introduce my panel. We've got a stellar leadership panel sitting here with people from, like I said, both online and offline retail. I would like to introduce Suneet Sharma, who is from Grofers, and he's got experience across international firms operating in India, with the likes of Tesco Star Bazaar, Max Hypermart, and more. His current role is that of a director at Grofers, leading the own brands in FMCG and branded spices space. So any one of you who are into FMCG production, branded spices, etc., he's the man you need to get in touch with. Next, we've got Ananta Padmanabh, who's the national quality head at this Big Basket. He's held senior quality functions. He's had senior positions in quality across Diageo, Metro, Cash and Carry, Coca-Cola, etc. So somebody who comes with a lot of experience in the quality space. We've got Umair Siddiqui from Trent Hyper, which is part of the Tata Group. Prior to joining the Trent Hypermarket, he was with Tata Mobile And he's the one who essentially launched what we call the Chota Hathi, which is Tata Ace. And currently he leads the food and personal care segment, which is about 300 SKUs, and they plan to grow it really big in the near future. We've got somebody who's got a very, very different experience. His name is Dr. Nitin Shankar Nagrale, who comes in from the hospitality segment. And he's a ace at supply chain management and materials management. He's currently the CEO of India and emerging markets at Quality NZ, and has experience across the hospitality sector with organizations such as Sofitel, Westin, etc. Welcome, Nitin. We've got we've now bringing in the seller's perspective, because all these guys represent a buyer, and we've got our Gaurav Gambhir, the MD of Shubh Food Industries, bringing in the seller's experience. So some of you would also like to connect with him just to chew his brain on how did he go about doing it, because he happens to have about 20 years of entrepreneurial experience with Shubh itself as the founding director of the company. His organization is a leading manufacturer of hing and works with a lot of retailers, both online and offline, especially with private label. Last but not the least, we've got Saurabh Bohra, who calls himself a young entrepreneur, though he has, mind you, 16 years experience. So anybody who was thinking of seeing a very, very young chap there and not seeing that, he's young because he's just started off Nova Satum, which runs repacking centers for staples and fruits and vegetables. And he's the founder of the Agritech organization. So the way we'll conduct this is, I've got a few questions that I'm going to put up to my panelists, and we're going to take you through a journey of what a private label, how a private label happens. And so a very warm welcome to all those who are attending, because we can't see videos of all those attending, and a very warm welcome to all my panelists. And hopefully by the end of this, we will have given out a lot of knowledge to people and thus made it fruitful for them to spend time on a Saturday evening with us. So talking about private labels, my first question is to Suneet. Suneet, 2020 was the year of baking goods, snacks. We've all seen baking ingredients going off the shelves, people trying to source it from different places, etc. Which products do you see rising in 2021 and beyond? What's your take on that?
So thanks, Vince, for this question. Actually, I have a lot of material around to talk about this. So first of all, I would like to thank Team CMPL for organizing such event where buyer and producers are meeting. And historically, also last year I was there in Mumbai and was present over there physically. So it is really helping a lot many of us, whether it is buyer or seller. And this is help, I will say, because it is providing the right stuff, what you want at right time, at right price, and at the quality what you expect for. So I would like to really thank to CMPL for arranging this particular event, and a special thank while in this scenario where we cannot meet face to face. Arranging this kind of interface is commendable job. So kudos to Team CMPL.
Thank you, sir.
Now coming back to the question. So yeah, while we entered in this particular pandemic, we have seen that people were crazy to buy anything and everything. But end of April onwards, we have seen the trend that people are shifting from regular stuff because they were aware that these are things available now. But there was things which were not available in the e-com or modern trade, which was like baking need, bakery ingredients, all those things, because consumers were quite dependent on the restaurants and all for all those things. So there was time while we have seen that people are searching flavors, choco chips and all, and these were hitting the highest number of searches in the e-com platform. Especially if baking ingredients we talk about, it has been close to 1800% more traction than in BAU. Bakery foods has seen the growth of 600%. So we talk about the snacks, while people was cautious about the health and all, but still snacks is something which has seen 4x kind of growth. Biscuit and cookies, one of the part of the breakfast need, because there was nothing other than biscuit and cookies to eat. So it has also seen the 600% kind of growth. Pasta, noodles, primes, all those products which were available in the GT or in the restaurants and all, which were not available and people were preparing at home. So that has gone up to 6x kind of. We are seasoning also seen same kind of trend. Now we are seeing that yes, that at that time it has gained the traction, and now it's losing the traction. But I'm saying that the base what we have created in that time, by the servicing to the consumers as per requirement, that trend is not going to be kind of nil. It is going to stay there. Like Primes has gone to 4x, now it is kind of 2x, and it is sustainable kind of. Pasta, noodles has gone up to the 6x, 4x, but it is now again at 2.5 to 3x what it was in BAU. Baking ingredients, this kind of new segment has been emerged in the e-com and modern trade, and which is again kind of sustaining at 2.5 to 3x. So there are this is all about the baking and snacks kind of. While it comes to the beverages, so green tea was not getting that kind of traction what it has got in the time of COVID. Green tea has gained 400% kind of growth. There are certain new beverages came up in the market during COVID, like turmeric-based beverages, tulsi, aloe, basils. These have all seen the good traction. And as per the studies and by the data, if you see the Nielsen and internal data and all, it is expected to be grow by 20% CAGR. So it is going to be there now, because now people understood that such kind of pandemic are going to be repeated now more occasionally, right? So we need to build our immunity. We need to be health conscious. So these are the things which are getting traction, and it will keep getting the traction. So I think it answers your question.
Yes, it does. Health conscious stuff is what it is. And talking about gaining, I think the only thing I've gained, or rather not the only thing, but one of the key things that I've gained in the last 1 year is weight. And that doesn't seem to be going away anywhere.
It's not, I will say that, since pandemic has been bad for general public, right? Because a lot many has lost their jobs, lot many industries has gone out of the system and all. But for the retailers or for the, those people are linked with the food and beverages business, it has been great for them. Like we have added close to 100 odd products during the COVID period. We have added close to 20 odd suppliers in that period. So, and there were certain categories, as I named, snacks and in beverage segment, which were never getting the traction, and we were pushing hard to get some kind of number from there. But now automatically it has got that kind of traction, and we are continuously growing there. So for us, for the industry, for this particular range, it has been, I will say, boom.
That's good. What we need to look for is silver linings in whatever's happening. That brings me to the next question, which I'd like Ananta to answer, please. 2020 was a year when physical meetings, visits were not possible to onboard new suppliers. How did you manage the onboarding of new suppliers, and what are the key learnings that you will then take into 2021 and beyond, when physical meetings will be possible? And if you could just share in light of the onboarding, quality and certification process of a private label manufacturer from that perspective.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Vicky, for the invite. My greetings to all the co-panelists. So this is regarding the private label introduction, especially food. It is very critical. So it is not just another brand. So the scale in which we operate pan-India level, it is equivalent to any national brand. So a failure in any of the product will be having a cascading effect of on all the other products, whatever we sell in e-commerce. So we have our own set of process defined for introduction of private label. I'll just take some few minutes to tell you what is the process we follow. So idea is generated by the buying and team or marketing. It's a cross-functional team. The ideation of a product will be done. Then the positioning of the product, pricing, what they wanted to penetrate, what is the market share, everything they'll study. Once that ideation is done, approvals are done, the process is initiated with the quality assurance. I belong to quality assurance. So it with me and our team. So we start with the product profile initially. So we make a draft specification of a product. And by that time, buying team also will be negotiating with the probable suppliers to get those products for internal testing or evaluation, just an internal verification at the head office level or a cross-functional team. So whatever we need an improvement in that product, what we wanted to target, what we want to improve. So in the first phase, we will be doing it. And basis that we will make a formal specification sheet, which encompasses complete regulatory information, product specification. Anything else additionally, a draft packaging spec also will be involved. Then the project start rolling. So by the time they will be finalizing 2-3 suppliers, sometimes it will be maybe one supplier. So instead of directly going for audit or an assessment of a supplier, so we will be going for an initial pre-assessment. This is offline. So before pandemic only, what we have done is instead of directly going and approaching a supplier, if it fails, is an entire time waste, and again we need to redo some work. So we designed our own pre-assessment checklist and just forward it to the supplier, get all the information about facility, infrastructure, whom do they cater to, what kind of a machinery they got, any certification, license, all this. In a nutshell, we'll get a gist of all the information from the supplier. Then we think that it is good to go. So first is regulatory is very crucial. If regulation wise it is fine, and infrastructure we offer, we get some photograph, video, whatever. Then we will go for an assessment of the supplier. This is that product what we have finalized. We do the complete assessment. We call it as our own terminology. It is a FSMS checklist. So we have taken it from the global market manufacturing practices, GMMP checklist from GFSI. So ideally in India, like a scenario where we have a small to medium scale of supplier, we cannot expect everybody will be having a certification. One. So few exporters are already who are in the business, they will be having at least ISO 22000 or FSSC 22000 or whatever under GFSI guidelines, they will be having BRC or IFS and SQF, and for the meet separate standards are there. If they have GFSI standard certified, we will not do the audit. We'll just visit the facility. It's like a green channel for them if they are GFSI certified, because it is much more than our qualification requirement. But however, we will do the visit. So if there is no certification, we will do our audit based on the FSMS checklist, which encompasses the regulatory, some component of ethical standards, okay, and also it will be comprising of PRPs, GMP, GHP, and also basic HACCP implementation. So nowadays, more or less, most of the suppliers are basically HACCP or ISO compliant suppliers. Otherwise, even though the supplier intent is very good, he is a new supplier, has not implemented anything, infrastructure is good, resources are good, quality is very niche and very good, then we handhold the supplier in achieving basic certification initially. So we do our assessment, give the whatever the non-conformities or a deviation. It is not like a fault finding assessment. Definitely, it is like a partnership with the supplier. It will be win-win situation for both of us, as a retailer and for a supplier. Only we expect intent from the supplier should be very good to implement, to learn, and do best for ensuring food safety. That is ultimate to ensure consumer health. So that is the only idea. And we will put a timeline for a supplier for a few months to implement. We assist them in all possible sorts, getting them right resource or ensuring them where to go for calibration. We have done everything. So our people who are in the office, they constantly keep visiting till they achieve a certification. They go and train, create awareness, give some basic Apex kind of a documentation. So now it is what we are doing is more or like a cooperation between a supplier and a retailer like us. So I can proudly tell in last 2.5 years, 90% of suppliers are basic HACCP. Only few are HACCP, some are gone for ISO 22000, some are gone for FSSC, and few people are already GFSI certified suppliers are there. This is how we go. So in a nutshell, in an organization like us, we have vertical experts in each section. One is a staple expert, one is a private label who has worked in different FMCG background, one is a meat expert who is a MVSC guy, a veterinary doctor, and one supporting manager who will be ensuring implementation of food safety all across the system. So this is how our corporate team, and also we have a ground team, almost like 50 people are there in my team, Pan India. Bangalore region, there are 4-5 people. In Delhi, there are 4-5. Okay, in Chennai, everywhere. So where are the suppliers we have a daily production, like a staple or a bakery or a meat processing? We have a dedicated QC, kind of a supervisor or senior executive or assistant manager kind of a person. And where all we have a private label, wherein we have the production once in a while, or weekly PO or monthly twice. We have a regional resource who keep traveling to these facility to ensure each production batch, before the batch, our raw materials are checked, hygiene is checked, process control being done, product release is done. So everything they ensure. So in Staples, we have our own internal app developed. So over the mobile phone, they capture entire traceability of raw material coming in till the dispatch. So this is how the process is. Coming back to how we worked in a pandemic, it was a completely unprecedented time period. I think everybody has faced it. So we are not separate from it actually. So initially we had some problem. Only for us, it was a very good thing, which was like we had our team in every region. So only few days we had issues of travel and other things. Once they got passed, they could be able to go. But wherever travel restrictions are there, we used to do all the virtual audits. So in terms of pandemic also, we introduced close to 20-25 suppliers. Okay, in all the categories of food, whether it is a grocery or private label, or some are in non-food and personal hygiene as well. So similarly, we used to get all the information over the mail, and we used to have a video audit or a virtual audit, entire tour of a facility, infrastructure, asking for right questions and looking at their process control chart. But like physical, we will not be able to.
I think we lost him.
He's got a bad connection, so I think he's just lost.
Yeah, technology. Everybody's logged onto the same networks. Yeah. Ananta, can you hear us? Ananta? No. I think while he connects back, what we'll do is we'll just quickly hop across to the next question. But
the thing is, Benz, I'll just intervene. Ananta is there. Ananta, you must be able to hear me. Yeah, the problem is that post you joining Big Basket, I believe the biggest losers are us, because the Diageo scotches have suddenly started tasting bad. So.
Yeah, Ananta, we had lost you for a few minutes towards the end. What we'll do is we'll circle back, and I think we've lost him again, if I'm not wrong. So just to give you guys a brief background of what we do, I represent BRCGS in India, and we do audits, close to about 1,000 audits in India and about 30,000 globally. And during the pandemic, we introduced remote audits, but thankfully, because we deal more with food and beverages industry and we are an essential requirement, we were able to do audits. And what we saw during those audits was a change when we do our audits, we kind of take out information from it, take a look at what's happening in the industry and understand all of that. And I was just pulling up some data, and what we saw was premises and equipment hygiene, which used to be kind of below, not in the top 5 of the non-conformances that we saw, moved up. So what we saw was people were not effectively focusing on equipment hygiene, maintaining them, cleaning them, etc. Maintenance was another issue that we kind of saw cropping up. So it maybe towards the end, if we get some time, it would be wonderful to just understand how is everyone working around those requirements. Ananta shared that they video conferencing or something on those lines where they virtually walk through this thing. Maybe that's something that we can look at towards the end. Without wasting much time, I'd like to get a manufacturer's perspective. And we've got Gaurav here from Shubh, whom I want to put across a question of did you take on new suppliers, new brands during the pandemic? And from a supplier's perspective during COVID, what did you do and how did you support retailers with their private label requirements, both existing and new ones? You're on mute, Gaurav. Yeah.
So before I answer your question, Benz, I want to thank Vicky and CMPL team for inviting us to this webinar. Okay, thank you so much, Vicky.
Pleasure.
Yeah, Benz, we have a few really in our hand. We are working with DMart, we are working with Spencer's, Walmart, Reliance Good Life, and we also have our B2B customers in India, like Mother Recipe, Anand Bhavan in South, and JK Masala in East. So we are trying to deliver products pan-India. During COVID, it was very difficult for us to maintain the factory logistic, to take care of our employees, reaching factory. So it was a very difficult and challenging during COVID. But fortunately, we took permission from the collector, and on 13th of April, we started our factory with 30% capacity. And we arrange private minibus for our employees so that they can reach factory in time. We also arranged this special COVID bubble environment for our employees. So we try to manage best. It was a very difficult position for us to deliver and manufacture goods. The raw material was not reaching our factory. The packing material was not reaching our factory. So, however, yeah, we managed quite well.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. So, did you add any new suppliers? Any new retailers?
Yeah, we collaborated with this Sparsh Masala in Bangalore and a big company in Mumbai. We also process with Barbecue Nation and Zoravian food chain.
Okay. And how was your experience of getting that, going through that whole onboarding process? Because they can't visit your factory, those stuff can't happen. Did you see they were much more diligent about it, or was it at the same level as pre-COVID?
So as Ananda mentioned, we are GFSI certified company, and we also we have our videos of our factory. We have our own lab in our company, so we track our samples and we convince them. Working since 20 years in this industry, they are very aware what we are doing, what we're delivering to a company. We also had virtual audits from them, so it was quite well managed. Not that difficult for me, honestly.
Okay, good to know that. Saurabh, help us in understanding what kind of research goes into developing a food and beverage private label, because that will be something that a lot of new age entrepreneurs or people who want to get into entrepreneurs or want to become entrepreneurs would like to hear.
It's with me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks, Benz without Mercedes. So thank you so much, and thanks guys for being there. And Nitin silently is having a little lovely something, right, Nitin? Piche.
I'm still awake.
Don't worry, I'll keep you awake.
Thank you.
मैं पकड़ के लाऊंगा आपको.
No
Okay.
problem.
So where were we? Okay, so what happens is in a new product development, first of all, I'll tell you, to propose someone, you need to have a what they say, some compassion. Okay, I would say a little passion for them. Okay, so if somebody wants to get into a product development, first of all, they should fall in love with that category. Okay, if I don't like aerated beverages, if I don't like hing or asafoetida, if I don't like snacking, okay, I am bloody not going to cooperate or be part of product development at all. If I'm a vegan, okay, I am not going to participate in product development of sausages. Okay, so first of all is the entire team should have passion or love for that product which is being developed. Now what steps get into, right? Look, every product which is developed by retailers or Horeca or I would say even FMCG companies, okay, they do benchmarking with respect to what is present in the market vis-a-vis that respective categories. Okay, so let's take an example of ketchup. Okay, so if Grofers wants to develop a ketchup, they already have, by the way. Okay, so if they want to develop a ketchup, they'll do the benchmarking of what are the ingredients present in the competition. First of all, who are the competition? Like say Heinz is a competition, Kisan is a competition, Del Monte is a competition. Right? They will do a serious benchmarking around their ingredients, their packaging, how do they look like, what is the pack sizes they want to, what are the highest selling pack sizes, yeah. In this, what happens is, it's not only data which you should believe, okay. So data is a typical eyewash. Say manipulate the data as per his convenience. Market of half kg jam, he will be promoting it consistently and making 1 kg jam as the category captain, or maybe 1 kg ketchup as a category captain, right? I'm also unstable, yaar, mera internet to hai hai. So anyways, so that is one part. So pack size identification is very critical. For that, you should not only believe in your internal data or maybe reference data, what has been shared by maybe BRC or Nielsen or Technopack or whosoever has done it. Rather, the guys should go visit the markets, do a proper benchmarking, not only of supermarkets where they get ACRs, लेकिन जूता तो उनको घिसना ही पड़ेगा मंडी में और बाजार में जाके. Okay. So their actual consumers lie there, mind you. Huh? If you are trying to develop a brand or a product, first thing first is it has to be an entry-level product with respect to superior quality and a value offering, right? So, and those are the customers who are going to buy your product, who are going to try out your product. Very difficult for you to move a Heinz ka user, right? But it's very easy. I would say, of course, it's very easy for you to move a Kisan ka user comparatively. And this we have done it in the past. Like me and Sunit had 7 months back, we were fighting the same fight. So that's how it was. Now, once you are decided on your pack size, you are decided on your packaging form, you need to really create a what is going in the market to hisab se you need to create your design, yeah, pack designs, right? It can be as nasty as a brand name. It can be as nasty as Naughty Nuts. Okay. It can be as nasty as Chimo or Cheeto, whatever I know. So if you want to create, so because it has to be catchy with respect to the, so guys were very smart when this Namo wave came in. There were companies. If you see the ROC ka website, there are companies which were formed with the Namo ka naam. There were brands. Namo tea came in, Namo mango came in, God knows. So, and these typically smart fellows will find it in Gujarat and Rajasthan only.
Yeah. The business community, yeah, smart ones.
So that is one. Now, once you have decided on your brand, that needs to be very catchy. Okay. And brand should also reciprocate the category. Okay. It cannot be like you will name a tomato ketchup ka brand as a cleanser. Okay. Sani tomato. It can be Sani tomato, right? वो पेट में जाके आपका पूरा system साफ कर देगा. Okay. So that's how it is. Once you've decided on your brand, you need to decide on the packaging. So packaging, you need to again do a benchmark. What are the color combinations, creatives, elements on the pack size which are these days prevailing in the market? I cannot go and print a vintage design when I know that my data of my populace is like 65% are below 35 years age. Right? So it has to be catchy. Yeah. Once you've done that, this is a homework, right? Which you need to, and then you need to approach the vendors. You need to identify vendors. You need to identify some solid vendors who not only have got ethical practices to be done, but they are also scalable. Okay, giving a very critical example, we had a very good vendor in our past, quite a neat guy, ethical guy. कभी भी किसी को चाय भी offer नहीं करता था. Okay, जो भी वहाँ जाता था तो he never used to offer even a cup of tea. Yeah, so never offered lunch वगैरह outside to even our quality guys. Ananta would be smiling out there. But this guy was quite ethical. Like, what bloody should I do with that ethics here? He had a scale which we breached in like 2 months' time. And when we asked him to invest on that, he said, "अरे sir, अब मैं क्या करूं? मेरा खुद का भी तो brand है ना, मैं कैसे आपको इतना माल दूंगा?" Finished. Now, Gaurav wants to comment. Yeah, Gaurav.
So normally, like what I've noticed now, जिसका brand है और जो कर रहा है private label, okay, you should not mix both of them. मैं कोई brand ही नहीं है इनका. मैं आप लोग की सेवा करने ही बैठा हूँ यहाँ पे.
ये sales pitch,
Yeah, appreciate the sales pitch, which is very good.
Actually what happened, first company which I was discussing this was Big Bazaar Future Group. बहुत पहले की बात है, 8 साल पहले की बात है. आपका ब्रांड है कि नहीं है? मेरा कोई ब्रांड नहीं है. ठीक है. सो बोला कि आप कितना बना सकते हैं आपकी कंपनी में? कि सर 20 साल को बना सकते हैं. लाइक 20 साल तो बहुत कम हो गया. पूरा ऑडिट करवाया, पूरा मेरा कंपनी का पूरा मशीनरी सेटअप ऑडिट सब करा लिया. मैं सर सब कुछ हो गया, खर्चा कर दिया मैंने.
जोधपुर चले गए.
अभी तो ऑर्डर नहीं है. मैं तो खर्चा कर लिया. But that day I decided कि there is no looking back. उसके बाद 28 of September 14 में I got Reliance Good Life. And तब से I'm trying to like सारे रिटेलर को मैंने पकड़ के अपने यहाँ पे लेके आ गया. मेरा कुछ अभी तक ब्रांड नहीं है. So बहुत सही कह रहे हो आप सौरभ. स्केलेबिलिटी इंपॉर्टेंट है. एंड ये जो है ना रिटेलर्स की ब्रांड है कि नहीं है, we become biased at times towards our brand and not to the private label. तो ये आगे जाके मुझे प्रॉब्लम खुद नहीं हो, इसके डिसाइड किया मैं कोई ब्रांड रखूंगा नहीं का, सिर्फ प्राइवेट लेवल करूं.
One thing I learned from Gaurav is Big Bazaar is teaching a lot of guys, a lot of manufacturers, a lot of lessons. I have learned recently. So anyways, so once you identify the vendors, you need to finalize the product recipe. Now, product recipe, you should always have a secret ingredient. Yeah. If your competitors are offering in tomato ketchup, if they are offering 26% of puree, then you should be able to claim that मैं 28% दे रहा हूँ. Okay. So that is something which, and that doesn't come at a very high cost. Let's be very honest with each other, right? Highest tomato puree के साथ में भी our cost was lowest when we launched Grofers Ketchup. Okay. So which was, I would say, really cracked the market.
Okay.
Then you need to actually work parallelly, and this is not done like एक काम छोड़ दिया और दूसरा काम कर लिया. If you are first time entrepreneur or if you are getting into creation of brand, you need to be very consistent and very, I would say, you need to go do all the activities hand in glove. Yeah. Similarly, आपने packing material यानी production vendor तो identify कर लिया. At the same time, you also need to understand that you need to have a very reliable packaging material vendor. Okay. So when I was handling Patanjali for Future Group, okay, I remember their Dantkanti used to get screwed up every now and then. Every second batch, the tube used to burst.
Okay.
And there used to be a serious gap on the side of supplies of, or rather distribution of Dantkanti toothpaste.
Yeah.
Same thing happened when we were with Grofers. Okay, we had amongst the best packaging material vendor, but our oil pouches, they used to get smushed. Okay. So you need to have very reliable, because you are going to launch your brand. It cannot go into a kitchen. And then there are barrier properties when you are packaging food. Right. So that again is very critical. And that packaging material also, he needs to be ethical. That is written on the wall. Okay. आप 5 पैसा 10 पैसा हर pouch पे extra दे दीजिए, but mind you, he should not play with the microns or the elements which he is using in or composition or structure of the packaging material. It's going to have a long-term impact on your product.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is one. I believe Ananta can second me if I'm, or correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. So once this is done, man, then what you need to do is you need to actually identify that यार मेरा product तो बन जाएगा 15 दिन में. Pre-launch activation should start. Okay. I was consulting to someone recently, in fact, advising to someone recently, and I said that from the day one, you cannot have that I am Heinz of the world.
Slow and steady.
हाँ, अपनी पहला जो है आप धरातल पे रहो नहीं तो रसातल में चले जाओगे. So either you जमीन पे रहिए, otherwise you will sink. Okay. So that's something which is very important. Charminar Basmati rice, I often quote an example. When Charminar Basmati rice we used to handle, I got into my retail career in 2014. At that time, Charminar Basmati used to be buy one get one or buy one get two. It used to sell in the market. Right? This is like 2014 की बात है, 2004 की बात है. Okay. उसके बाद में Charminar at certain point of time used to command in branded Basmati rice segment 70% of category size. Okay, in retail, yeah, in GT as well as in modern trade. Right, but it became a brand, and then they started charging their premium on it.
Premium on it. Yeah.
आपको शुरुआत में तो you need to be very so, and accordingly you also need to identify your marketing channels.
Okay.
So who is your TG? Accordingly you will identify your marketing channels, and accordingly you will create your ad for the product.
Yeah.
जैसे पेट सफा का जो ad है वो NDTV पे नहीं आता है. Okay. वो आज तक इंडिया टीवी, इंडिया न्यूज पे देखिए, तब तक वो आके कहता है पेट सफा, सब कुछ सफा. Okay. So Ashok Masale का ad जो है, that doesn't come on Times Now. It will not come maybe on CNBC English, right? It will come mainly on the crowd which is Hindi speaking. So that again is very critical for the success of your product.
So if so the gist that I'm taking out from what you've just said is quality and your brand should be paramount. That's probably the number one thing that you should.
Price.
Yeah. And then And that kind of brings me to the next question that I have with respect to the brand itself. And this is to Umair, because he comes from an organization that has a lot of brand lineage for for probably a couple of centuries kind of thing. So the question is that brands and retail platforms seem to be more prone to non-physical, non-product linked risks. So in case of private labels and food and beverages, because you've got your own brand sitting on that particular product, how are you managing topics like ethical sourcing, environmental sustainability, etc.?
Yeah, thanks, Benz. Probably a very, very relevant question. And as you rightly mentioned, the lineage that we have as part of the Tata Group has been instrumental in us ensuring that ethical sourcing is the cornerstone of any business that we do, right? So the question that you have on ethical sourcing, I would like to split it into two halves, right? One is ethical sourcing, which really means the social impact in terms of the people that are involved, the ways of working, and the moral fiber that you work with, right? That's one part. And the second part is the environmental impact, right? So both of these are actually the essential components of ethical sourcing. I'll just I'll just explain how we try and manage it at our end to the best of the abilities that we have. So we have something called a Tata Code of Conduct, right? Which is a comprehensive, it's not a document, it's a comprehensive way of life which governs every Tata company in the group, right? So we have more than 150 companies in the group, and every single company is running their value system based on the TCOC, which is Tata Code of Conduct. And not only the companies that we are part of, even all our partners, regardless of how small or how big they are. For example, when I was in Tata Motors, the courier company which used to handle the courier transportation from the head office to the other offices, even they had to sign the TCOC agreement, and they were taken through the training because we ensure that every partner who works with us is aware of what it entails, right? A quick couple of pointers that we really focus on, which is part of the TCOC anyway, our audit checklist, which Mr. Ananta had talked about. We have a pre-audit checklist, right, which is derived from the BRC, and it's a joint effort by Tata and Tesco Group, which again is highly renowned for the ethical practices that they follow in the UK and everywhere else. So obviously the basics are there, right? So all certifications based on the Wages Act, Factories Act, all of that has to be taken care of. That is a precondition that we have for any of the vendors. As I said, regardless of the size of business that we do with them, regardless of whether it's one product or 10 products with them, they will have to follow these certifications definitely, right? We have a very strong focus on the employees that work there. So we have some pointers called automatic failure points. So I'll just give you an example. We have an audit score of a maximum of 100, and any vendor who clears around 80 or 80 and above can be considered for production. But there are some automatic failure points that we have kept in the checklist that regardless of your score, if you don't have that coming in, we won't be going ahead with the production, right?
Yeah.
So
Something.
yes, I've had vendors who have had scores of above 95 on 100, but since one of the automatic failure points was not met, we couldn't continue till they rectified the issue. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have something similar which we call critical non-conformance, which means the certification from BRCGS will not happen if there is a critical non-conformance.
Exactly. And I think that's where we got the inspiration from the BRC guidelines. So things like having a yearly medical checkup for all the employees that you have in the factory, regardless of whether they are full-time or a contractual employee, is one of the automatic failure points that we have, right? So if the partner is not doing that, unless he does that and we have records, we will not be going ahead with it, right? Things like infrastructure. So we have a matrix in place which says yes, Saurabh, I think you have a.
My bone of contention on this particular point with you, what you have said, and maybe Mr. Ananta can also second or third it. Okay. Now, annual medical checkup of the employees is something which is, I believe, it should technically be monthly. So when my auditors came in, they said annual. मैंने कहा annual से क्या होता है यार? आज तो 72 आवर्स का कोविड टेस्ट भी लोग पास कर जाते हैं और घर जाके फैलाते रहते हैं. So at least make it monthly mandatory. Let the doctor come in the facility, our facility, let him do the checkup and give the certification of all the 40-50 odd employees.
Yeah, I think that's
If it is monthly, why it can't be daily?
Obviously, so there can be a doctor stationed there, I'm saying.
I think probably we should take that part of the conversation offline and do a risk assessment around it. But that's a good question, and maybe Vicky, possibly for your next webinars, that's a topic that we should be looking at. Maybe doing a deeper dive into individual things.
It would be.
No, I'll just quickly take 1 minute to answer and put my 2 cents on the table. So Saurabh, as part of Tata Group, we are more than happy to have a daily checkup of all the employees that we have, right? But we just need to be cognizant of the fact that we are right now here, right? And this is where we want to reach. So obviously you can't reach here on the first day. So we have partners, as Mr. Ananta said, that we work with partners who are not international brands, right? They're relatively smaller. So expecting them to have something like a monthly checkup or a daily checkup, having a doctor in place is probably a long shot. Even a yearly checkup of all employees is something that they would take a couple of years to get in place, right? So as I said, probably we'll have to take baby steps here because we are not as matured as the Western market. But I'm completely in sync with you that probably this is the direction we need to move in. I think we're all on the same page regarding this. Yeah.
Gaurav would be cursing me. Salam, meri bhi life difficult kar raha.
Yeah.
Now, only I think hygiene policies should be stricter, and also you need to create awareness amongst the workers, telling that if they are sick, they should stay away. And also, few companies make the policies, they will give sick leave, even though some employees may utilize it without being sick. Also, they give some 5 to 6 days of sick leave with paid leave. So, what will happen? Any worker, he will come to work of losing his 1 day salary. So that is why even though he is sick, he try to mask it and come. So if there is something policy or awareness is there amongst the workers, and management role is very, very important. Creating this awareness, making them to aware what is the hazard it can cause. That is where it is very important from the management to have right policies and awareness.
I'd love to share something. So by this, what happened?
Just Gaurav, if I could just stop you. We've got Nitin who has a hard stop at 4 o'clock. So if we could just take his viewpoint on the hospitality sector, and then we'll come back to you. Yeah, sorry about that. So Nitin, you come from the hospitality industry, and what we wanted to know was what changes have happened in COVID, and since you have a procurement kind of a background, especially in the procurement strategies, and also if you could shed some light on how does a manufacturer become a supplier into the hospitality industry?
So thanks, Ben. Thanks for the question, and thanks, Vicky, for giving me this opportunity to talk in this beautiful forum. In fact, it's my first time that I'm talking to all of you, and I'm really blessed that you all gave me this opportunity. So, as far as the hospitality industry is concerned, the last year and then these 2 months have not been that good. So there is a pickup which has happened, wherein there is a growth which has happened in the last 3 months, but the industry is still lagging behind. We still feel that we'll take at least 1 more year to get back to pre-COVID scenario. But COVID has brought in a lot of changes in our lives. We have understood that having knowledge or having products or having business is not enough. You need to have good relationship. You need to know people, and you also need to understand the requirements of people to be more successful. So the suppliers who were credible, who used to be reliable, they got business for sure. And people who were just fly by night kind of people, they were not even contacted. Hospitality industry was serving only the basics. So if you had gone to a small time restaurant or maybe a star category hotel, then you would not get fancy products, but you would get basics like dal, chawal, sabji, vegetables. But then that also came in from people who were reliable. So what happened was it brought in a lot of hygiene, safety, food safety, sanitation. Like Mr. Padmanabhan actually put it in a very detailed manner. So people started learning that if I have to be successful, and even if I have to be present, then I need to live all those practices which I was doing, which were not really following the food safety, sanitation. Then people started following that in terms of sourcing their own products, packing, handling the logistics, supplying, and also ensuring that the products were delivered to the end customer in a manner which was defined by the end customer. All of the Horeca created a manual, a food safety manual, and which allowed most of the suppliers to learn that if I have to supply this product, then I need to have those many items to be ticked. In terms of a lot of people, as Padmanabhan was saying, and I'm really proud that I'm here, that I came across somebody like Mr. Padmanabhan. A company like ours applied for ISO 22000, and mostly we have crossed that hurdle. So most of us developed a checklist for ourselves. We created an audit checklist for ourselves, and we reached a level wherein now we are able to cross that and call ourselves as safe food handling organizations. FSSAI took us through several COVID and FOSTAC trainings, and every organization ensured that the supplier was told about the requirements, and then that has really brought in a new dimension of expectations from the supplier. It's not just the product, but the product quality and reliability of the supplier has become an important aspect in the hospitality industry.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, again, quality and food safety kind of go hand in hand. But one of the things that we've seen because we also do our audits, is a chalta hai attitude. If things are moving on, we will not work on improving it. And that is where I think a lot of things need to change, because we need to get into the focus, like Saurabh was mentioning, that I think it was Saurabh who was mentioning capacity issues, etc. If you want to take on a private label, you cannot say, I have finite capacity, I will not invest more, because if you start getting more business, you possibly need to focus on that. And similarly, in terms of quality, etc. So thank you so much for that, Nitin. And I believe you have a hard stop at 4 o'clock.
Yeah,
so
I look forward to see you all in person sometimes rather than these virtual
meetings.
And
so
thank you once again.
Thank you so much.
Thank
so
you.
feel free to drop off whenever it's time for you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Nitin.
Just coming back to the whole thing, if I was to put this question to Umair, Ananta, and Suneet, in the private label business, again, coming back to the focus point that it's not the manufacturer's brand that is at stake. So when onboarding a new supplier, what are the key things that you focus on, which if we could tell the attendees that these are the few things that you should be doing, so that if you were approaching me as a supplier, I would be more than happy to have a conversation with. So what would those things be?
Yeah, so I will go first.
Sure.
So yeah, definitely, as Ananta has told in detail that what all the quality systems or things that they are looking for to ensure that product quality is coming out well. So that is first thing, that what we look after, that what kind of certification any manufacturer is happening. Second is that capacity, what kind of unutilized capacity is lying, so that if any scale of business we are going to give, then we are having sufficient scope to grow with that particular supplier. Third is that business ethics and responsibility. So that comes while you talk and while you gels up with the would-be partner, right? You understand that what is their thinking, psychology around the business. So these are if you talk about the three, then these are the three.
16 hours.
Otherwise, there are not many things which we check on. But yes, first three is quality. Second is that what kind of capacity is lying. Third is intention for the business or ethics towards the business.
Sure.
And fourth, if I want to add, then it will be the current set of buyers to whom they are supplying. So not many like, Big Basket is having in the list that if you are working with these, then I will not work with you. Same we are having, maybe Tata's also having, right? So we also have this kind of checklist that say, if you are working with these kind of buyers, then we are not interested to.
But on the other side, let me just tell you, things are going to change, Sunit. 7 साल पहले जो चीज थी, जब अपन दोनों साथ थे, तब अब हम इस साइड में, तो अब चीजें चेंज होंगी. हम कहेंगे कि अगर तुम उसके साथ में काम कर रहे हो, तो मेरे साथ काम नहीं कर सकते.
Maybe people should approach Saurabh, because he also runs World of Own Brands. Yeah. And along with Vicky, and maybe you guys should approach him to understand how is it that advertising agencies, because advertising agencies do this. So, and particular advertising agency will work with Coke, and then when Pepsi comes along, they'll start a new subsidiary and say, there's an arm's distance from it. So maybe we should approach Saurabh for those kind of ideas. So Ananta and Umair, if one of you could.
So to start with any private label, the supplier should be having a product range which actually interest us, which should be different from the regular one, maybe more healthier options, or a niche in itself, and having a separate kind of or a different kind of ingredients. That is one. Second thing is supplier is having a basic infrastructure resources in place. Third one is very important, the intention of the supplier, intent of the supplier to earn the certification, not to get the certification. Okay, so these are the things.
So just a take on that before we go to Umair, regarding certification, because I represent a certification that's used by 30,000 sites across the whole world. So would, and a question, if I was a manufacturer, would having a GFSI certification, what's the benefit of that? Would you audit me less? Would I get more orders? Why should I go in for a GFSI certification?
GFI certification, we are auditing based on the global market GMMP checklist, which is almost like 50-60% of any GFI SI certification. So that means they have passed all those hurdles to achieving that GFSI certification. Because compared to any ISO certification, GFSI certification is a little hard to get, and supplier has to really put in a lot of hard work, resources, awareness. Okay, so to earn that actually. So GFSI certification is like ultimate certification currently in food industry.
Okay.
So with that certification, it is easy, because whatever I do assessment, even any given point of time, even I go with the unannounced audit also with a GFSI certified supplier, he will definitely score above 90 or 95. So that is a kind of a thing. And also whatever critical to food safety is addressed.
Okay.
When they achieve the certification, that is where it becomes a green channel. Their monitoring process will be, frequency will be less actually.
Okay. Okay. Umair, anything from your end?
Yeah, so I'll just quickly focus on a couple of. So Mr. Ananta and Mr. Sunit have spoken about very hard data-driven facts that we need from the vendors, right? So I'll just focus quickly on a couple of software aspects that I look for when we go for a vendor onboarding. So one, the vendor should be honest with himself, right, in terms of the gaps and challenges, because at least since we, as I said, we work with a lot of smaller vendors. We're not looking for vendors, we're looking for partners who we can grow with, right? And we have grown with a lot of partners over the last 2-3 years among all the SKUs that we have launched. So if you guys are honest with yourselves and us, then whatever the issue is, we can obviously find a solution, right? Now the problem is if we don't even know the problem, and if the vendor himself doesn't know the problem, then eventually you'll end up in a mess, and that we've experienced in a couple of cases. Right? So it's very important for them to be very honest and transparent about where they stand currently. And second, willingness to change. So my quality head, when he visits any of the factories during an audit, one of his key decision factors is the attitude of the vendor. Because if the attitude is correct, you can change a lot of other things, right? If there is an infra problem, if you need another machine, if you need, let's say, a metal detector to be kept, all of that can be done very easily, right? It's not a too big a deal. But if the attitude of the person is not cohesive for a joint business or a joint business plan later on, that generally doesn't change, right? So willingness to change and being honest with yourselves, I think, are the two key things that apart from what Mr. Ananta and Mr. Smith said, is what I look for when I
So, okay, thank you. So we've got a few questions. Let's take a few of them. One of the questions is that there's a company that's called got GI certification from the Government of India. Will that help in terms of becoming a private label? So maybe Saurabh, that's an answer that you can give, because it's more of a branding perspective that we need to bring in. You're on mute, Saurabh.
What does the question say? GI certification from the government, right? As a cash person from Konkan, and we have received GI certification from the government of India. How
does that help?
Okay, so Kamlakar ji, the biggest thing is Konkan itself is a brand name when it comes to cashews. Okay, so if you want to sell Konkan ka cashews, the biggest problem which I am facing while sourcing or what we were facing when I was on the other side of the table was Konkan manufacturing units doesn't have scale. Okay, so they will be able to give like a ton or 3 tons or 4 tons a month. Wherein if you want to do the private label, or if you want to get into the private label manufacturing of the retailers, like when we were with Grofers, we used to buy like monthly 150 to 200 metric tons of cashews. Right? Aapke paas mein GI tag hai. We remember that Konkan cashews have got their GI certification done from Government of India of lately. Yeah. But to utilize that, remember 320, 240, 180 are not the brand names. They are only the count in cashews. The brand name is Konkan cashew. Okay, so you need to actually mobilize your resources and capitalize on that brand name, and definitely people are going to come to you. And scalability, आपकी सारी units को बनानी ही है. Yeah.
So a question for Gaurav, and I think I think he'll be the best to answer it, which is the problems private label manufacturers face when they work with renowned FMCG brands. This is a question from Prince.
Sorry, I didn't get you.
So what are the challenges that you see when you try and work with FMCG brands, private or retailers, etc.?
See, challenges. See, the first is that, as Umair mentioned, you have to be honest to yourself. Second is that you have to maintain the quality, and you have to fulfill the requirements of the retailer. So like Walmart has a different parameter, More has different parameter. So we are GFSI certified company. So we have our social audit and machine audit, everything on place. So you have to build up that infrastructure for the companies.
Okay. So before we wrap up, maybe in a couple of minutes, just a quick question to this panel. What kind of vulnerabilities did you see during the COVID times when you were looking at your suppliers? Maybe things that you would like to have them to avoid when it comes down to the future? Any one of you willing
Let me answer this, because I believe we have faced a catastrophe out there in sourcing at that time. The biggest thing was what Omar said. He was absolutely right that vendor's attitude or supplier's attitude, right? So supplier, if he's not able to cooperate, if he's not ready to cooperate. So it was somewhere in the January end, I told most of my buyers to ask the suppliers to have their labor stationed in the factories. They need to create the residential places, okay, or dormitories within their factories. You would be surprised to see we had a vendor base of around 300 odd vendors or 400 odd vendors. Out of them, only 2 of them, they did that.
Okay.
And they were the only ones, वो भी 50% लोग ही रुके उनके यहाँ, and they were the only ones who were able to supply consistently. बाकी सबने हाथ खड़े कर दिए. Okay. So first thing is labor friendliness. हिंदुस्तान का लाला कभी भी नहीं करता है. So when you call about sustainability and ethics of the supplier, the first ethical thing is they should not cut their 1 or 2 rupees यार हमेशा. आज तू वहाँ सुसु करने गया था, तेरा 5 रुपया काट लूँगा. Okay.
Yeah.
And this happens. This happens on ground. Ananda must be aware of, Umar must be aware of, and Sunit very well is aware of.
Saurabh, in this
Yeah.
COVID में हमारी कंपनी 150 times सेल किया है महीने का. हमने एक भी आदमी का ना सैलरी काटी है. We are paid them completely. We think that if you help your team to grow, your company will grow automatically.
Absolutely.
So ये टाइम होता है जहाँ पे आप लोग हेल्प करो, उनके साथ दो. कोविड आके चले जाएगा.
The second thing is one is Gaurav, एक second. One is labor friendliness. Second is you need to have your internal logistics also. Okay. So these are 2 facts. Where your supply chain was broken was आपके पास में power supply आ रही थी. Okay. Raw material रुक के आ रहे थे. You were not able to manufacture because आपकी labor नहीं थी वहाँ पे. Your labor exodus happened massively. Okay. And you are not getting transport. So if you have got internal stationed labor or residential labor and transportation, then you can actually be a good resource if such calamity comes in future. I am saying if.
Okay. So what we'll do is we're anyways over time. So I'll answer the last question, which I would like to. So there's a question from Pragya Gupta, which says, what resources do we use to find suppliers? My straightaway answer is contact Vicky. That's what we're all doing here right now with both the CMPL Expo and the World of Own Brands. That's exactly what these guys are trying to do. Is there's a supplier, there's a buyer trying to create a platform where they can come together. And if you look at their website on CMPL Expo, you'll see a lot of options where you can schedule one-on-one meetings, etc. And I'm sure you've got an email from Vicky. If you're one of the attendees, you've already got the email. So pick up that email ID and send your requirements over to him, and he'll be more than happy to do that. Is that correct, Vicky?
It's a pleasure. Yeah, that's what the whole objective is, to try and get everybody on board on the same platform, to collaborate, interact, and learn. I mean, that's what we are here to, to get inspired and see what's in it for us, the opportunity, what the COVID has provided, the positives, and learn from the negatives to try and convert that into an opportunity, which would, be worthwhile.
Correct. Thank you so much. So we've actually exceeded our time.
Yeah, we've exceeded by about 10 minutes or so. Yeah. So
Yes.
anyways, firstly, I'd like to thank Benz for, moderating this session. I'm sure it's been insightful and a learning, experience for all of us, especially the panelists on board. Nitinji is already, he had a flight to catch, so he's left us about 10 minutes earlier. But, Anantaji and Saurabh, obviously, he's been an integral part of the team as well. He's now from the manufacturer side, so he's on the other side of the table. Gauravji, once again, Sunitji as well from Grofers, always been supportive. Umair, it's the first time, that we're interacting with you. So it's been a great experience to have you on board, and look forward to a much greater collaboration as well with the entire team. So all in all, it's been a great session, and we look forward to, the B2B meetings, as you mentioned, on the 9th and 10th for the food category. That's what it's all about. And followed by the session on packaging and brand design, because that was some of the elements which we just discussed as part of, initiating from the ideation stage. So that's what's going to come up next on next Friday in the afternoon. So we'll keep you posted on those sessions and the panelists for that session too. So all in all, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure talking to you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Vicky. Thanks, Ben.
Yes.